What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing probably the final follow-up to my Sabers versus Sabers and Blasters versus Sabers videos, by this time covering some tips when you're playing as a Saber hero versus a Blaster user. If you haven't seen those two previous videos that I just mentioned, I will leave a link on screen at the end of the video, so make sure to go and check those ones out as well. Now, before we get into it, I do have to give a massive thank you to Doug, Jazza, Jeremy and Vic for helping me with the footage for this video, and for the previous one as well for that matter. What we did was we split up into two squads of two, changed to the same pink side, and then searched for a game of Showdown at the same time. The footage in these videos has made these guys look bad, because obviously most of the clips are going to show me winning the battles, but keep in mind the footage is only here to show what I'm specifically talking about, and I can promise you from hours on end playing with these guys and against these guys that we are all pretty much the exact same skill level. There were countless clips of me getting absolutely slaughtered by these guys as well, but only a select few of them are going to make the video, as obviously the footage does need to be fairly specific. But in saying that, this specific video will be a lot more of my mistakes rather than just me winning, because I think there's things to learn from both good and bad gameplay. So anyway, this video is most likely going to be a little shorter and less detailed than the previous ones, as honestly playing as a Saber user against a Blaster user is somewhat easy, and there's pretty much just one main tip that I'm going to give with some sort of follow-up tips sprinkled in there as well. So getting straight into that main tip, and this is all to do with the enemy and the timing of their rolls. So we all know that Blaster users don't really have any kind of defense. The only thing they can really do against the Saber user is roll, which obviously gives a short bit of immunity, meaning you pretty much can't be damaged by a Saber when you're rolling. What we do also know though is that once your enemy has used their two available rolls, they're going to have maybe a second or two before they can roll again, and so when they are unable to roll, there's not a whole lot that they can actually do to stop you. So I'm going to show a few clips here, and in these clips you'll notice one thing that I'm constantly doing, which is being very patient. So a lot of times people get caught out as a Saber user because the enemy is within arm's length, so they decide to pretty much swing spam, as it seems like eventually you are going to land a few hits. Well, in my experience, that's actually the complete opposite of what you should be doing. What you want to try and do in a 1v1 situation is you want to pretty much bait your enemy into rolling. If you can get them to roll once, then you can easily hit them when they get back up, or if they dodge that Saber attack with a second roll and they have no form of defense for a couple of seconds, at which point you can pretty much just swing spam for 2 or 3 or even 4 hits before bringing back your block. So you can see in this clip here, Vic does have his rapid fire on, but because I'm holding my block, he has to roll to try and get me to swing, and that is the right thing to do. In his situation, there's not really much else he can do, otherwise he's pretty much just going to waste an ability. Once his rolls are gone though, you can see I'm pretty much free to attack, as he has no way to stop it, but you'll notice that I actually stopped attacking after 2 or 3 hits. Again, Vic pretty much has to roll and try and bait me into swinging so that he can actually deal some damage, but all you need to do is just let them roll, and as you can see, once both rolls are gone, it is pretty much game over. In this next clip you can see the same thing happens, and just to show that rolling is the only thing these guys can do in a situation like this, notice here that I have full health, and because Doug rolled through me, he opened me up and baited me to attack, which is exactly what you have to do as a Blaster user, and you can see he actually took over 200 HP away in just a few seconds. Like I said though, as soon as I stopped and played it a little bit more patiently, that roll tactic is essentially useless, and you can see I just decided to let Doug roll, at which point I could move in for the kill. Now, that tip alone of just being patient and letting your enemies roll around you, if you guys practice that and make it almost like a habit, it will drastically change your luck against Blaster users. And honestly, ever since I started doing this, it almost feels like you are completely unbeatable. Hold your block while they're firing at you, always walk towards them and close the ground, and try and bait them into rolling, because once they have, there's a very good chance that you've already won the fight. Now, in saying all that, you do need to practice this, because this is by no means a foolproof tactic. You can see in this clip here, Jeremy had me on the ropes the entire time, baiting me into swinging even though I knew that I shouldn't, and when I did bite, he made me pay by dealing some very quick damage. So the lesson to be learned here is also not to get too cocky and assume you're always going to win, because this does happen, and especially with Han and a few other characters that I'll touch on in a minute, you can very quickly lose these battles if you do think it's going to be easy. Now, as I said, this does take us on to our next little tip, which relates to the characters who can easily avoid this little patience tactic. Han, Leia, Chewie, Iden and Boss can all deal damage through your block. Iden and Leia can deal damage with their alternate fire modes, Chewie's bowcaster straight up just can't be blocked, and Bosk and Han both have explosives that can deal damage regardless if you're blocking or not, as well as actually Han's shoulder charge too, now that they have added the damage back. On top of that, I guess Boba can actually deal damage through a block as well, since he does have his rocket barrage. So if you come up against these characters, the patience factor does change a little, and you still need to play it patiently, yet also a lot faster than you would with all the other characters. You can see here just how quickly Doug ended me as Iden. That alternate fire mode really does cause a lot of trouble, and you can see that I just got absolutely melted in this clip. So for all those characters that I mentioned, you do need to try and take them out a little quicker, but still be patient, as swing spamming still won't really work. Now, all of this so far has related to some 1v1s, but moving on to some tips for 1v2s, or even more for that matter, which can be heroes versus villains, or this can even just relate to regular troopers as well. In fact, the whole video can, but I'm going to show you guys here a mistake that I made, which caused a pretty much certain death. So straight off the bat, I freeze Lando to take him out of the equation, and I wanted to focus on Finn, so I managed to land a few hits on Finn, and then you can see that I wanted to keep them both in the same direction, so I dodged away to get them both in front of me. Now, Lando ends up falling off the edge, which got him out of the way very easily, so again, I decided to target Finn, because if I can take him out, it's going to be a 1v1, which massively increases my chances. The mistake I made though was after I broke out of the stun, I used Frenzy, which actually switched the attack over to Lando, and so now rather than taking Finn out, I'm facing two different enemies who are at half health, which still puts me at a disadvantage. So that right there is a huge mistake that you really do need to avoid. Never switch between opponents unless you absolutely have to. Always try and target one enemy and take them out to make it a 1v1. Obviously, when you are targeting someone, you can't just forget about the other enemy, as they will always make you pay for that, but always try and get rid of one enemy first and then move on to the other, rather than focusing on both, as that is very rarely going to pay off. Now, if we put all of those tips together and take a look at this last little clip, you're going to see how I put it all together, yet I forgot one key factor, and eventually that actually cost me the win in the end. So I'm up against Han and Leia, and as you can see, I'm making sure to keep them both in front of me so that I can't take damage from behind. And once I notice Han is low on health, he becomes my main target. Not only is his health low, but he's also the more dangerous character, so I focused on him and managed to take him out, which then of course leaves me in a 1v1. Now, I'll just fast forward to the end of this fight, and if you keep an eye on my stamina, you'll notice I was definitely not paying attention, which as I said ended up costing me the win. Vic baited me absolutely perfectly, and I fell for a few of the rolls. Then I started swing spamming and wasting my own stamina, and then I actually got laid down to only needing one more hit, and I was spamming that trigger only to find that I had no stamina left, resulting in me standing there like an absolute idiot while Vic completely melted me. So there's two things to take from this clip. One, stamina is key and you should always keep an eye on it, and two, I should have actually just used my spin attack here, which would have actually guaranteed the kill, as Maul, Yoda and Luke all have spin attacks that can't actually be rolled out of. So those are pretty much the last two tips there. Stamina is key to winning, and if you do run out of stamina with those characters, or if you just want to get a guaranteed hit, then use those spin attacks or the rush attacks and you'll pretty much guarantee getting the hit. So that is actually going to be it for the tips today, guys. Like I said, this one was a lot more basic, but at the same time I do think it will hopefully help you guys improve your gameplay when you come up against a blaster user, as it's not always easy to win those battles. If you did enjoy the video, guys, make sure to leave a like down below to help support the channel. I'm thinking of possibly making one last follow-up, which would actually be a blaster versus blaster video, so if that does interest you, then make sure to let me know down in the comments. If you are new to the channel, then feel free to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on any more Battlefront 2 videos or live streams. Thank you all so much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I will catch you all in the next one.